The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
This episode and every episode of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast was brought to you by the generous and awesome support of listeners like you. Do your part and go to MattTalkOnline.com/join the team and make your monthly pledge. You'll get some cool rewards and perks like access to my Matt Talk Online Statistical Almanac, digital preview guides, and even some cool swag like shirts, hats, and pint glasses. MattTalkOnline.com/join the team. Episode 501 of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jason Bryant. Glad to be with you on this wonderful spring day. It is April 5th, 2019, and guest today will be talking with University of Northern Iowa national champion Drew Foster. Became the first national champion at UNI since 2000. That was Tony Davis. He won that. He was pretty good. But that's pretty much what we got. Got a good lengthy conversation with Drew, tackle some things about the Panther Train, who the toughest Schwab member actually is, and hint, it's not Doug, and other things involving the program. There's a lot of support, a lot of history there in Cedar Falls. But before we get to it, I do want to tell a quick story. As prior to the NCAA championships, as a matter of fact, the weekend of the Big 12 championships, wrestling lost the patriarch of the Smith family, the Smith wrestling family, Leroy Smith Sr., or as everybody called him down in Stillwater and pretty much the entire country anyway, Big Leroy. And while I was not like super close with the Smith family, I've gotten to know Leroy Jr., of course, Leroy Smith from the National Wrestling Hall of Fame over the past decade or so, and interviewing John, and I'm working with some things on Pat Smith down in Arkansas in this Little Rock program that I'm launching. So Pat's going to be a big part of that. But there was one story I had with Leroy Sr., and this goes back to the Wrestling 411 era. And I want to tell that because it's really the only story I got, but it's kind of synonymous with everything people talk about with Big Leroy. So Kyle Klingman and I made the decision during the Wrestling 411 year, so that was about 10 years ago, to cover the junior colleges, the Division III, the Division II, and the Division I national championships in consecutive weekends. And to do that, we drove across the country. So we drove from Minneapolis, or the Twin Cities, down to Rochester, Minnesota. Actually, we cut over to Marshall, Minnesota to cover the Super Regionals, and then came back to the Twin Cities. Then we set out later that week for Cedar Rapids. Then we drove to Houston and then came back up to St. Louis on this, 3.5 week journey. Part of that journey is when we were on our way to Houston from Cedar Rapids, in which we stopped in St. Louis and then stopped in Oklahoma for the night. And we're doing an interview with Leroy at the Hall of Fame. And when I say Leroy here, I'm referring to Leroy Smith of the Hall of Fame. And we sit down and we get done with the interview there in the old library before the renovations. And Leroy looks at us and goes, "Hey, where are you guys staying?" And we were just like, "Yeah, we'll get a hotel." He goes, "Well, hold on. You guys are going through Oklahoma City. Let me call my dad." Calls up Big Leroy and says, Hey, Dad, I got some friends that are coming. They need a place to stay. So next thing you know, Kyle and I are driving to Del City, Oklahoma, and what becomes a jokingly we call the Smithsonian. And we walk in and Big Leroy showing us around. And what was amazing is it was just a little house. I mean, it wasn't, I'd been added onto over the years, but as you walk through the kitchen, it was just a shrine, not to all of the wrestling trophies, but to every trophy that the children and grandchildren had kind of acquired over the years in various sports. We're walking through and, say, okay, who's that? Which one's that? And, Chris wasn't even in college yet. And so he goes, that one's Christopher there with a hat on backwards. And, we're looking, and then there's John Smith's giant bronzed article about him winning a world championship right next to like JT Realmuto's baseball trophy. Now, we didn't know it was JT at the time because, the catcher for the Phillies, formerly of the Marlins, yes, he is a grandson. So Chris Perry's football and baseball trophies are right there amongst world championship trophies. It was quite possibly one of the most mind-blowingly awesome things I'd ever seen. And we go into the living room and sit down. We're talking, and Kyle is, he's the history buff. He's the guy who really knows the history of the Smith family, and is asking these really poignant questions about opinions and such. And I'm just like looking around, and Big Leroy goes, "Well, we got 10 kids. we're not sex fiends. We're just good Catholics. And I just remember how he said that. And I always got a chuckle out of that. And we looked around and I said, okay, who's the biggest name ever to sit right here where I'm sitting on this couch? And he goes, well, Kenny Monday used to sleep on that couch. And, Alexander Medved sat there one time talking to me. I'm sitting there like, my goodness. I mean, just the stories that this guy had. And we stayed in this, it was like the guest room had they were smaller than twin beds. It seemed like they were like, I'm a pretty big guy. And I'm like, if I roll over, I'm rolling out of this. And I remember that next morning, Kyle and I wake up. We're going to go to Oklahoma City University. We're going to check things out. I actually visited with Ashley Sword and Nicole Woody as we kind of looked around the campus there when they were wrestling at Oklahoma City. And before that, Big Leroy takes Kyle and I out to breakfast, insisted on paying, would not let us pick up our tab. And it was a place called Jimmy's Egg, which had some of the best breakfast I'd had in the state of Oklahoma. I've been to Oklahoma many times, and that spot was a good spot. So he drives us around to the John Smith Fieldhouse at Dell City High School, and it's John Smith's name's on the building. There's a statue outside. I mean, this is Oklahoma wrestling, and we're getting the tour of here's what my sons have done, and then showing us the trophies of what his grandsons have done. So when we say it is a loss to the wrestling community when someone like Big Leroy passes away, in this case, there is no overstating it. The amount of grandkids that wrestle, the amount of grandkids that dotted the Oklahoma sports landscape of this man, just really, really phenomenal to really try to comprehend. I came from a small family. I mean, I don't have any true blood siblings. I have a half sister on the older side, a younger half sister on the younger side. Had some step siblings along the way, but I don't know what a family that large is like. I mean, my family, I inherited a bunch of nieces and nephews and cousins. I still can't figure out, and I've been married almost 9 years at this point. So, oh man, just the remarkable nature of Big Leroy. And I saw Leroy Smith, obviously the Hall of Fame Leroy Smith, as I talk about it, as I walked in to the Renaissance Hotel right before the NCAA championships. Might have been after day one, and I gave him my condolences, and I gave him a very brief version of the story of what I just told you. And I would have never, ever understood and comprehended the impact that such a gentleman would have if it wasn't for Leroy calling, hey, Dad, my friends need a place to stay. And it was that simple, that little gesture of kindness while we were at the Hall of Fame on this 3-week road trip gave me some memories and an explanation of a person that a lot of people in Oklahoma knew, but not too many people outside of that knew. I mean, big supporters of all the Smith kids and all the married. Like I said, there's just I can't even remember my cousins' names from my wife's side. And this guy had them all. Like there's a family picture of there's like 50 grandkids. It was crazy, but. That's my little story I've got. I wanted to say, I forgot to say it last episode, so I wanted to make sure I said it now. And even while the topic here is Northern Iowa, you want to talk about history? I mean, why not? Let's put Oklahoma State and Northern Iowa in the same show in terms of their historical relevance to one another. So that's what I've got. That's my story about Big Leroy. Thank you for listening through it. And again, for this show, I'd like to thank you for spending your time with me, because you've always got time for short time. Let's meet Drew Foster. Our guest today on the Short Time Wrestling Podcast from the University of Northern Iowa, NCAA Division I champion in 2019 at 184 pounds, Drew Foster. Drew, you got to like the sound of that. Welcome to the program and congratulations.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Been a busy week. I mean, you've been at the state capitol. You've had the Whirlwind Iowa tour. I mean, everybody's coming out of the woodwork to talk to you. Well, summarize what the week's been like since you stood on top of the podium in the last match of your college career.
It's been very overwhelming, but very awesome at the same time. It's cool to see people reaching out and congratulating me, and hearing people were following along and just rooting for me. And to see people genuinely happy too. A lot of my close friends, my family members, and just people around me that are just genuinely happy. That really pumps me up and makes me really proud of the accomplishment.
Before we even get to the impressive feat that you did in becoming UNI's first national champion since 2000, a lot was talked about your redshirt freshman year, where you were down a couple weights, you were under 500. There's that progression, but even before that, what was it like growing up wrestling in Iowa? When did you first step on the mat for the first time?
I started back in kindergarten. My dad took me to a practice and kind of took off from there. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the friends I was making, and I just enjoyed the sport. And then going through like just as a kid growing up, we get like season tickets to Iowa meets, so I was able to go see quite a few Iowa meets and just high level wrestling. And then I had a lot of success as a kid, actually, just like in Pee Wee and then AAU. Then I get to high school, and I'm fortunate enough to be on a really good team where we're getting third, second, and then eventually they won a state title the year after I graduated. So I was around a lot of good guys and a lot of good coaches along the way too, that helped me grow in the sport and kind of make me who I am. But I mean, I don't think there's anything like wrestling in the state of Iowa. I mean, I can't really say that as far as I haven't wrestled in other states. There's in other states, but just hearing guys that come, some of my teammates now that are from out of state and they go to the state tournament, they're like, holy crap, like this is the real deal. And so it's been a blessing to just wrestle in the state.
For those who are unfamiliar with the state of Iowa, explain Burlington, Iowa, what it's like growing up there.
Well, I actually grew up in between Burlington and Mediapolis in a small little town called Kingston. It's not really a town. I guess there's like a boat shop.
Is that why you cite Burlington on your bio? Because it's the closest town that's actually a real town.
Yes, I have a Burlington address back home in the Mediapolis school district. But so we live out in the country, about 5 acres. I mean, I was always doing a sport, hanging out with friends. Sometimes I'd just be in the backyard, just play football by myself. Because not living in town, you can't really do that much as far as like going to visit people when your parents are working all the time. But I found my calling in sports. As far as I love playing football, played some soccer growing up, and then wrestling, of course. And I was able to travel with a lot of good friends in wrestling, and I love back home. It's when I think of a peaceful place, I think of back home.
So you go through high school, you don't win a state title. A lot of people bring that up. Explain the mindset of going from, okay, I didn't accomplish my high school goal. Now my goal is ultimately to wrestle at the next level, the Division I level. What was that decision like in trying to say, okay, I didn't accomplish the high school goal. I've got to choose a school now, and I've also got to choose a school that's willing to accept me.
Yeah, I had very slim pickings as far as Division I. I had 2 schools that were interested in me with, there was no scholarship, obviously, because I didn't have the accolades to necessarily earn the scholarship right away. So, my thing was, as far as choosing between, all right, do you want to go Division I or do you want to go like a D3? Those were the 2 routes that I was thinking about taking. And my outlook was, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to try to do it to the fullest and at the highest level. And so I chose Division I. And when visiting UNI, I just really enjoyed the atmosphere and what the guys, what they were saying about the program, how they're interacting with each other. When you see that, it's like, it's not like a fake thing, just like a show for recruits. It's a real thing. And I feel like a lot of times there's kind of a show that gets put on through recruiting, but what you see here is what you get, and it ended up being one of the biggest blessings in my life to even step foot on campus here and be able to be around the guys I've been around.
So I'm going to take a shot in the dark that Division III might have been Wartburg, or was it another school?
Co College.
Okay.
Coach O. He's a great guy. He's reached out to me throughout the years too, and he's a good coach, a good guy. My parents really liked him.
So you make the decision to go to UNI. A lot of that people are talking about was a relationship with Randy Pugh. What was that relationship like, and how legit is that explanation to where he was kind of the draw for you there?
Well, that's like a pipeline almost to Southeast Iowa. His hometown is roughly 30 minutes from my hometown, and we have a connection with Jason Payton, who's my club coach. throughout high school. And, I mean, we just kind of hit it off right away. Randy kept things simple with me and kept investing in me. And he truly believed in what I had to offer. And he would tell me that like repeatedly. And it got to the point where, you know, he's telling you this all over and over. Not only him, but other coaches too. They're buying in. And when you're hearing guys telling you, man, you're really good, you could be the best guy in the country, then to the point where you're the best guy in the country, you just got to go out and prove it. And when people are telling you that, that starts to become your thoughts too. And your self-belief goes up. And when you have that and you feel unstoppable, you truly feel like you are the best guy, and the results will come.
I'm just still because I cover the Division III tournament every year, and I pay attention to Division III. I'm just sitting there thinking about how freakishly crazy it would be if you were wrestling at Coe College based on the career you had at Division I. Be like, man, some of these guys would just not know what they're getting into. But so there's always that thing when you look at it hindsight. But I want to go when you get into the recruiting process, you step foot on campus at UNI. I mean, how much did you know about the program growing up in Iowa? You've got Iowa, Iowa State, UNI is the three Division I programs. But how much did you really know about the history of the program and what Doug Schwab and the staff were doing there?
I honestly didn't know anything until I got a call, like my first call, and I kind of started looking into UNI wrestling. But I remember it would have been my senior year, just sitting in the library in high school and going through the NCAA brackets and seeing Cologne and Peters just crushing it and doing really good. I remember Cologne at the Midlands too. And so when you see guys doing really well, it brings attention to the program. You're like, okay, I think I like what they're doing. And then just being able to come to a visit and see the atmosphere in West, not to a visit, to a duel, and see the atmosphere in West Gym with a couple of my teammates really pumped me up too. Just the fan base here, it's crazy, and you can tell that they're invested in the guys wrestling, and they I don't know. In my opinion, when you cheer for certain people, you can tell if you really know them and how you cheer, and I think you see that when you come to West Gym. But I mean, honestly, I didn't know much about UNI throughout the process. I didn't really know much about wrestling or the history of wrestling besides Iowa, because I'm about 45 minutes away from Iowa City, and that down there, all they talk about is Iowa wrestling. Now they're talking about UNI wrestling, so that's pretty neat.
Yeah, so of course there's a large, very passionate fan base that pays attention to UNI wrestling, a good donor base, the pledges for pins. We got so many different things that circulate around the program that do actually resonate nationally. But so how quickly upon arriving on campus were you really educated on the history, the 1950 NCAA championship, the fact that the school used to not even be called Northern Iowa, Tony Davis being the last national champion there? I mean, how much of that stuff was thrown at you right off the bat?
When you're walking in West Gym every day, and, I mean, at first I was kind of starstruck just by being in a Division I room and on the university. But then you keep coming and going through West Gym, and there's so much history in there, and it's everywhere. You look on the walls and the Hall of Champions. You come into the wrestling room, you look on the board, you see all the national champs, Olympians, team champs. You see all of that, and you just really take it in. And I'm mad that coming in, I didn't know much about history. I didn't really follow wrestling all that much, to be honest. But from where I was then to where I am now, it's just incredible. And I know names that I know of some of the history of UNI wrestling. I still don't know it all, and I'm still learning to this day, learning about guys. And I mean, it's an honor to even be in the same room as some of these guys were.
Yeah, you look at it through some of the names, 1946, Jerry Lehman, national champion, Lehigh's Wrestling Arena, Lehman Turner Arena, named after him. Bill Cole, Rob Cole's dad. There's UNI everywhere when it comes, Bill Smith, Olympics. We got, Keith Young, there's buildings named after him through that state of Iowa. When you're putting on that Panther singlet, what was going through your mind the first time you had a redshirt year? Now you're in that starting lineup for the first time. What are the nerves like, and what's, now that you've had a chance to be educated on the history, what was it like stepping out in the West Gym wearing that singlet for the first time?
Oh, it was a lot of nerves, but it's a lot of excitement too, because you get to represent the university and the people, like the Panther train. So like the people of the past, the present, and those that are yet to come. And it's just incredible because you're considered along the same lines as some of these great guys that have accomplished a lot more than you and were probably better wrestlers than you, but you get the opportunity to put that singlet on and go toe the line. It was just incredible. And even to be on a team with, we had my freshman year or my second year, you got guys like Malone that are still in the room, Loader, we got Andrew Sorensen, Laser, and then you're wrestling alongside guys like Super Moore, Dylan Peters, Blaze Cabell, Cody Caldwell. Like it was just very surreal just to even step on the mat, and it's a great honor because not everyone gets to do that and to really cherish it. It's a big thing.
A lot's been talked about that redshirt freshman year. What were the struggles you had the most adjusting to time in the starting lineup and what ultimately led to a 15-18 record your first year in the lineup?
I would say just the experience. I think experience is the biggest thing you can get in college wrestling because you can wrestle on opens. My first year, I did pretty well in opens, but I wasn't wrestling against like starters or like varsity guys. So once you start doing that, it's different than the open tournaments are. But once you get that feel, that experience, your confidence starts to grow, and you're just used to traveling, the weight cut, the management, keeping up on homework and all that. And so just getting that experience is huge. And I was also going different weights and weighing different weights, so it was a combination of things, but I wasn't there yet. I was still developing as a wrestler, so it was definitely another developmental year, and I think every year has been that.
So we talk about development. A lot of people believe that when you get into a Division I room, you're pretty much mastered. There's not a whole lot of technique and teaching. It's more or less fine tuning. What was the technical teaching level like in the room between all the coaching staff and that helped you get better those first 2 years?
Their big thing, I had a lot of little things that I needed to do right. Like my mentality was good as far as I'm going to go and shoot, but they had to basically train me to take better shots, increase not your attack rate, but your attack success. Working on bottom, I think bottom's the biggest thing that you see as far as what freshmen and younger guys struggle with is getting out on bottom. That was the emphasis, staying tough on top. So there's a lot of things, and then just the mental aspect of wrestling, and there's a lot of struggles that come within a season, and just trying to be able to wrestle freely. Something they try to help me with, but there's a lot of fine tuning of things, and just getting me used to like a different style of wrestling as far as from high school to college. High school, there's some you might have a double duel and you might have forfeits, you guys that aren't necessarily at the same level as you, but you get to college, everyone's going to be really good. Everyone's going to be wrestling for 7 minutes. So just getting used to the college room.
You make the move up to 184 pounds at the end of that redshirt freshman year. You see some more success. How much was your comfort level impacted by that? You won the last couple matches. You looked like you were fresher in terms of you were in the MAC at the time, so I was paying attention to everybody in the MAC because of where I went to school. But that's beyond the point. But how much did the weight change really improve your wrestling?
Well, I've never really been a fan of cutting weight. Everyone kind of cuts weight, whether it's 5 to 10 pounds, but when you're doing a little bit more than that, you just kind of feel uncomfortable. At least for me, it's not for me. And for 74, I was still a small 74 pounder, but I was kind of growing at the time. So the weight cut was just, I wasn't doing a good job with it, and it was kind of hurting me. And then being able to be on full feed, be just feeling really good at 184, even though I was way undersized, I felt really good. So I was able to wrestle really good. It's like, you feel good, look good, wrestle good type deal. That's what it was. And it took some adjusting as far as getting used to 184 in comparison to the 65 to 74. Because I mean, it's a different. I think each weight's kind of like a different style of wrestling within itself, and so it took a while to get used to it. But then get to the MAC tournament, and I'm just excited to be wrestling. So I'm just going out there and wrestling and trying to get to the national championships, and came within one match to go to losing overtime to go to nationals. That too. So I mean, that was heartbreaking in itself.
Now, move to your sophomore year. You're fully at 184. The breakout match is you're winning the dual meet at West Gym over Jack Decco, who was an All-American from Old Dominion. And that was pretty much like, okay, Drew Foster has arrived. What was that moment like? And I understand the gym was crazy.
It was really cool. And that was, I like to say, like the coming out party. The duel itself was awesome. I think we almost got the shutout. We might have got the shutout. But that's kind of like just the icing on the cake, because Decco was a stud, and everyone in West Gym knew that. And to take him out and kind of wrestle a really clean match from start to finish was huge, and it was kind of like a big time confidence booster for me. So I was like, oh, this guy's a returning All-American. I just beat him up pretty much. That's kind of what I needed, and it propelled me into the future.
Now, that season, you went on, you finished 26-6. Decco did beat you at the MAC championships, but you went in as the number 12 seed in what is a monster weight class. You've got Gabe Dean there, you got Bo Nickel there, you got Sam, you got Miles Martin, this was probably the toughest weight class of the year that year. And you come in, you pull out a 7th place finish in just there's a lot of studs that didn't place at this weight class. And one of those wins was over Zach Zavatsky, who you've had mastery over through your college career. But when you get on that podium in that weight class from a sub, below the number 8 seed, I mean, kind of explain your performance and how you think the whole season came to a head for you back then.
Honestly, I was just out there wrestling. I wasn't protecting anything. I was just wrestling. Simply put, that's all that it was, just going out there and continually wrestling, no matter what the score was at the time, not getting flustered by the situation, and just wrestling freely and enjoying the opportunity to be in St. Louis at the national tournament. It was an incredible run, an incredible feat, and I don't have words for it. It was really awesome.
Now, moving forward the next year, another 26-6 season, you missed the podium. What was the difference in performance? Was it just having a not as good day as the previous year, or what were the differences between 2018 and 2017?
2018, I was putting a lot of pressure on myself as far as, let's say I won a match by 2 points, I'd be upset with myself because I'm like, I'm an All-American, I'm supposed to be doing better than this. Like, that's what the people expect me to do. And I was just getting inside my head too much, letting other people affect me. And I was just protecting. In my matches, I was protecting something that didn't need to be protected, type deal. And at the end of the year, or after that tournament, I remember sitting down with coaches, and they're like, I mean, you're really good, Drew, but you had a couple lapses in your matches. And that was the difference in my national tournament that year. It might have been, I think they said 12 seconds was the difference of All-American and sitting in the stands. And just I had a couple mental lapses where maybe I broke my stance or didn't hustle like an extra second on bottom to get out. And that was the difference, where the previous year I was just wrestling the whole time. I wasn't having those lapses. I wasn't getting flustered or anything. And so that was a tough one to swallow for me, or to feel for the fire that going into this past year. And I think it's really what I needed, because it helped me wrestle more freely and not get so caught up in accomplishments and accolades and all of that.
What was different in your mindset coming into this season? Was there something that said, okay, I placed, then I didn't place, I'm going to go out there and make this my best season yet? What was the changes made in the offseason?
My big thing this offseason was really finding enjoyment and getting my energy back. As far as when guys on the team, they talk to me or think about me, I like to think that they say, Drew's the most energetic person in the room. No matter the situation, no matter the day, I'm always coming in and smiling, laughing, dancing a little bit. And just getting back to that was my big thing. And Coach Roper actually told me something that really stuck with me. And he's like, you know, in practice, like, who are people that like motivate you or whatnot? And I'm like, well, my little brother, I want to be like a role model to him and kind of like set an example and almost pave a way for him to do as well as I have in life and then do better, go beyond. And he's like, all right, well, send your brothers to practice every day watching you. Like, how are you going to practice? How are you going to, you know, the whole time, how's your face going to be? What kind of things are going to be shown in practice? And that's something that stuck with me. It was also my last year, and I was just trying to enjoy it because it's an honor to even be on a Division I wrestling team, to be on any college wrestling team. And I was just trying to take advantage of it and really take it all in. So, I mean, that was kind of like the driving force this year.
Talk about the move to the Big 12. This is, you know, the MAC was an improving conference. Missouri, Old Dominion, Northern Iowa were brought in as affiliate members. Now that conference has expanded, SIU has come in. They've absorbed EWL. But even before that, UNI makes the jump to the Big 12. You win a couple Big 12 titles. I mean, talk about the change in schedule, the change in intensity with that move to the Big 12, you know, not just for you, but for the team.
I think it's good because it helps with recruiting. I think that's probably the biggest thing. People see like the MAC, they're not as impressed as when you see like, so let's say, you know, MAC champion versus Big 12 champion. You see the Big 12 champion, you're going to think right away, you're like, oh, that's a Big 12. They're going to be a better wrestler, whether they are or aren't. I know that's like just a title that I think appeals to people more so than the wrestlers. But also, we're joining a conference with Oklahoma State legendary coach John Smith. You got a lot of big teams. You got Iowa State, who's up and coming in there. Oklahoma, SDSU with Damian Hahn now. It's a lot of tough teams in there, and it's a conference that's growing and growing as far as the level of wrestling in it and the teams that are in it. And you know, I like to say their conference tournament's a little bit cooler than the MAC because, you know, we're at a BOK Center in Tulsa, and they put on a show, so it almost simulates nationals in that way, which gets you ready for nationals when you're in that environment, and that's really neat.
When we look at the weight class this year, you know, Miles Martin was number one the entire year. It looked like, you know, once Bo Nickel went up to 97, it seemed like the chase was for second. Okay, who is Miles Martin going to beat in the finals was kind of the mantra going into the tournament. What was your mantra going into the tournament?
That I was going to win it. I trusted myself, believed in myself, and I got a whole backing that believes in me. And I was going to go out there and wrestle. And, you know, what happens. I'm not going to be upset with the results. You know, it might stink for a couple of days, but, you know, I'm more concerned about the legacy I leave behind me. And I want people to remember me as, you know, just the good human I am and the energetic person rather than a national champion. And I've had Josh Sauber and Randy Q had that conversation one day before nationals, talking about, you know, the legacy's already left behind. What happened at this tournament. I mean, the biggest thing is how we're remembered and how we're leaving, and we're leaving as better men than what we came in as, and that's the biggest thing. But to go and wrestle freely and come out on top is, I mean, it's icing on the cake, to be honest. And it's a dream come true. And I wish that guys on my team could accomplish it too, and I think they will in the future years, in the coming years, starting next year. But I mean, it's more than me that was out there for that. And, I mean, it's guys from the past, from the present, and then guys to come. And I'm just happy to be able to represent UNI out there.
When we get to the tournament this year, you come in as the number 6 seed. Zach Zavatsky of Virginia Tech sits as the number 3. You had beaten him twice this year already. You'd beaten him 2 years prior at the NCAA championships. When you saw the draws, what were your initial reactions? I mean, was there a little bit of like confidence when you realized, okay, I've got a guy I've beaten twice this year, potentially in the quarterfinals?
Excited to see the brackets come out, but I mean, you never know what's going to happen at the national tournament. I mean, you can predict, but look at the bracket this year. Would anyone have predicted the outcome of placements and who beat who? Probably not. So seeing that, I was, you know, I obviously looked at the path I would take and who I may wrestle, but at the end of the day, you're going to wrestle whoever's out there. And that's what I did.
Yeah, coming as the number 6, and you're not that far removed from a loss in the dual meet at Iowa State to Sam Colbray, and then he's sitting down there on that side. He had a couple wins, knocked off Dakota Gear, and then loses to Chip Ness in overtime, and Ness had knocked off Shakur Rashid. Bottom half of the bracket, kind of, if you look at it, kind of blew up as it was the 6 and the 15 in the semis, and you're looking at across the mat. I mean, how soon? Was it during your match? I mean, how soon did you realize that Max Dean had knocked off Miles Martin in the semifinals?
I didn't know until I was told when we were like in the tunnel afterwards. I was kind of upset about that because I wanted to wrestle Martin, and because I mean, my thing is, people are probably going to say, "Oh, Miles Martin, like Dean got lucky against him to beat him." And Miles Martin should be the champ of that. I mean, people are still going to say that. And I wanted to leave no doubt. I know last year when I heard Bo Nickel was going up, I was upset about it. And like, I want to wrestle the best guys to just prove to myself and just to prove to everyone where you and I is at.
When you get the draw, you sit there and you're in the finals, and you've got a guy, Max Dean, who he beat you last year in that 8-9 match, and you guys wrestled again earlier this year, and he beat you in the dual meet. And there's a guy that you've lost to twice. It's not Miles Martin. He just beat Miles Martin, who you had lost to the year before in the consolations, and it's like, okay, or 2 years before in the consolations. It's like, okay, was either opponent kind of a chance for redemption for you? I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I was excited to be in the finals, and I was ready to wrestle whoever was out there. I was planning on beating both of them. Obviously, that was my mindset. And I mean, I was ready for whoever. I don't really strategize for matches much. It's just one of those things that just try to stay consistent throughout the match and get to my attacks, fly tough on top, and move quick on bottom and get out. And that's what the match came down to in the finals. And I don't think it would have mattered who was out there. I would have wrestled the same way.
Some of the chatter can be talking about, coaches just amping up their kids, and, allegedly Rob Cole's statement that you were an athlete for only, the first minute or two of the match. I mean, how would you define your athleticism and your athletic ability in the sport of wrestling?
I think my style is very explosive and athletic, and I don't know, like, I understand him saying that about me to pump someone up, but I mean, it wasn't the first time it had been said. I mean, it is what it is. It doesn't bother me much because I proved in the end that I was athletic in the third period to get to my attacks. But I like to think I'm athletic the whole match. Sometimes I get tired, sometimes I don't. It's wrestling, and a lot of that's mostly emotions because I know I'm in shape, and it's just controlling the emotions of it throughout the match and not getting overwhelmed with things or flustered when the situation turned. And I think I did a good job of that at nationals. Like, the coaches just telling me to breathe throughout the match, and you don't think about breathing much, but sometimes I catch myself holding my breath in matches, and then it just wears on me more, and I end up tired in the third period for whatever reason. But in that tournament, they were adamant on telling me, they'd be in the corner, breathe, take deep breaths. So I do that. And, don't get me wrong, I was tired in the third period, but I was still firing, and I'll always fire in the third period.
The questions about some of the opponents you meet, again, you closed the gap on Dean. Obviously, you'd lost to him, then you lost to him tighter, and then you beat him. And then you've possessed, as I alluded to earlier, you've possessed almost this mastery over Zach Zavatsky. Why are you able to beat him almost every single time, if not every time? I mean, 3 times this year, back in the 5-12 match a couple years ago. I mean, what is it about his style that you can just eat up?
Honestly, I don't know. If anything, I'd say maybe it's a mental thing. But, to wrestle a guy a whole bunch of times, you can't be set on, all right, let's say I beat him twice going into that match this year. Like, for me to be like, I'm going to beat him again, that's not something you should do as a wrestler, because you don't know what you're going to get from match to match. And he's a great competitor, but for whatever reason, I can tell you, come out on top in multiple matches. I mean, the same could be said about. I mean, Taylor Vince has beat me 3 times in my career, and I've never beat him yet. And I mean, Max Dean beat me 3 times too. So sometimes, like, the match just goes whatever way it goes. I don't have an answer for that.
And we talk about the impact of what this means. What does this mean for UNI wrestling? You winning a national championship?
I mean, if anything, it's an inspiration, and it's something that goes to show, like, something for all the work that we all put in to finally have a guy punch through. It's our program that's out there, and it's going to help with recruiting. It's going to help with belief within my teammates. And I think we've been talking all year about, we need someone to be the tip of the sword. Someone punch through that way that everyone else will. And I'm expecting big things now for the guys in the future. Just see a guy that you're going shoulder to shoulder with finally do it, and know that it's everyone that's out there representing us. Even now, I'm taking a couple of weeks off. Next week I'll get back on the mat, but you see inspired guys in the room when I'm walking in. Guys are just fired up, and they could wrestle a national tournament tomorrow. I mean, later this afternoon, they're ready to go. And that's really cool to me. And I think that's bigger than, feeling the praise. Just seeing the program, like the guys, my brothers, they're just pumped up, inspired, and ready to get theirs. And I really believe that's coming, and we're going to keep climbing in the team race. And I believe we're a national champion caliber team, and it's going to come in the future, in the coming years. I don't want people to be surprised when it does. Because we got high level guys. It may not be as highly starred, whatever they say on that, but I mean, we're Iowa's team. We got some hard-nosed dudes that work hard and are invested in the program and each other. And we got a coaching staff that they believe, and we're going to conquer some major feats. I know that.
Why are you Iowa's team?
Look at our roster. Oh, yeah, I mean, we're Iowa's team. We're not, I mean, we got some out-of-state guys, whatever, but to the core, it's Iowa's team. We're doing it with Iowa guys. From 1 to 36, we're Iowa guys. The guys that come in, they become Iowa guys. And Josh Albert, I mean, he's driving around with an Iowa license plate, Iowa ID. It's incredible, and everyone knows each other from the past, growing up, wrestling in the state tournaments together, AAU, whatever it may be. And to the core, I mean, we're Iowa's team, and for anyone else to say that, it's kind of BS, in my opinion.
Well, because there is a rise. Of course, the Hawkeyes have been the preeminent program in the state for a long time, and there's always the Iowa versus Iowa State battle within the state civil war of wrestling. Now, with what Kevin Dresser's doing at Iowa State, really trying to ramp up that program, couple All-Americans, and what Schwab and company and the Panther train have got at UNI, it seems like there is now a real three-way battle for loyalty, legitimacy, and power within the state of Iowa. What's it like for you to sit back as an Iowa kid to go, man, all three programs are definitely, they're up there or on the rise right now. I mean, it's a good time to be a wrestler in the state of Iowa. You've got options.
Yeah, it's cool. It's awesome to be from the state, and I got respect for both the other two schools. And I want to see us all do well. Obviously, I want to see UNI at 1, and then they can go 2-3, wherever they want. They can fight over second and third. But to see that, and it's almost like the excitement in Iowa wrestling it all together it's back. And I mean, we're pulling some big recruits. They're all pulling big recruits, and the fan base is growing for all the schools. I mean, Iowa's fan base will always be there. Our core will always be there, but we're growing in numbers too, and that's cool to see. You see it when we do it at Iowa State. That's the most packed I've ever seen West Gym. In my 5 years. And when we get those kind of environments, I mean, it just goes to show Iowa wrestling, the state of Iowa wrestling. It's cool.
How bad did you want to wrestle Iowa in a dual meet during your college career?
Oh, extremely bad. I mean, I don't know why it's not happening when you have a top 15 team that's an hour and a half away. I don't know why you wouldn't try to wrestle them. Why you would, avoid it. We've been trying to make it happen. So for it not to happen, I don't know. I mean, we go to the Midlands so we can see them. We stop going to the scuffle. We want to go to the Midlands and wrestle them. And I just don't understand the reasoning behind. And maybe there's actually an actual reason, but I hope in the future it happens. If anything, you'd think they want to shut us up, They could stop talking if that's the deal. But I mean, I think we're studs. We're studs up in Cedar Falls, and we want to punch everyone in the mouth.
All right, I'll stop poking the bear in Ames and Iowa City right now. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Cedar Falls, in Waterloo. We've got Doug Schwab, a very fiery individual. You've got, Lee Roper, the Southern low key, but he can get intense. And you got Brett Robbins with a mustache. You got Randy Pugh, who's been around the program for a long, long time. This is a very dynamically diverse coaching staff. What is it about those personalities that all just kind of meld together and make it the best place for you and your teammates?
Well, I think it's good being a diverse environment as far as personalities go. Because you can lean on certain coaches for certain things, and certain coaches can relate to certain things, and they all have a different wrestling style that they can put into you and help you with. And I think the same can be said about the guys on our team. Like, I don't know if guys really wrestle the same. Like, you look at, for instance, like Jacob Holschlag, me, and then Taylor Lujan. Holschlag's a guy that's stingy wrestler, really tough on top. So to me, a more athletic wrestler, wants to be on the feet. Then you got Lujan, he's going to toss you from wherever you're at. He's a showman, and he's comfortable anywhere. And those are three different styles, and that's what we're seeing in the room. Being able to practice with those, like, this is a group of three, and having those styles, it grows us as wrestlers too. And I mean, it's a good place to be, and I think we're growing as wrestlers, and not only that, but growing as men. And we're leaving here a better man than what we came in as.
What is it like being out there coaching and seeing in West Gym or wrestling, and Doug Schwab is their coach? And basically, if you put a step counter on him, he probably would do a marathon in steps in just the 2 hours of a dual meet. I mean, how do you react to somebody that animated in the corner?
That's passion. That's passion. That's passion for us. I mean, when you got a guy that's willing to do all that, I mean, he's so pumped up for us, so excited. It's hard not to want to wrestle for him. I mean, I couldn't imagine not wanting to wrestle for him. He's incredible, and I love it. And maybe as a competitor, you'd look at him and be like, you wouldn't like him type of deal. But to be with him, have him as a coach, it's awesome. That's a passionate guy, and he's compassionate about all of us. So, I mean, what he's done to the program before it's incredible, and he wants the accolades to come for all of us. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's something that, like, for parents, like, you're giving your kid away to Doug Schwab. You see the guy jumping around, looking really animated. But he's truly invested in us as people and making us better people at the end of the day.
Kind of an off-the-cuff question here. Who is the toughest Schwab? Is it Doug? Is it Allison? Or is it any one of the kids?
Oh, it's got to be Bob Schwab. Hendricks. He's an animal. He just keeps coming. Yeah. I did beat him in 2K, though, a couple of months ago. Waiting for a rematch. But we'll see if he shows up for that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, the twins, they're going to just end up basically battling each other just like the boys do. They might be tougher than the boys.
They're going to be tougher. they'll end up being tougher for sure.
Now, the one question I threw this note out here to a bunch of different people asking us, like, I got Drew Foster coming on Short Time. You got any questions for him? The overwhelming response, the most common question dates back to 2 years ago with was it the Jeff Gordon shirt? It was a NASCAR shirt. Was it Jeff Gordon? Why? What's the story behind that?
Well, growing up, I was watching NASCAR because my dad's really big into NASCAR. He's a big Jeff Gordon fan, and I just thought it looked cool shirt. And I don't know, I'm someone that likes to stick out a little bit and be a little bit different. And so I wore that. It's kind of just showing off my personality. And ended up getting in trouble by NCAA because didn't say UNI on it. So thought about putting just a UNI sticker on it and calling it good, but didn't want to test them. They're kind of a rowdy bunch, the NCAA.
Now, had you worn that before, or was that just a one-time thing?
No, I worn it before. We were actually in Ohio for a duel, and they got some hecklers in their stands in their student section, and they're screaming at me saying, "Jalen Hurts better," and just it's funny stuff. It's cracking me up, but yeah, it's a good shirt.
Actually, yeah, speaking of that, got to give Ohio U some credit. Those fans, they do their research. They are actually very smart wrestling hecklers.
They really do. I remember just hearing stories from the past of them getting Ollie Thompson fired up, getting on Doug sometimes. It's all good fun, so they don't cross the line too much.
What's outside of West Gym? What was your favorite environment to wrestle in for a dual meet?
I mean, probably Oklahoma State, just because they bring a big crowd. Actually, no, Virginia Tech. My freshman year, we were in a theater, so we were on a theater stage.
Oh yeah, the Moss Arts Center. Yeah,
that was really neat.
So for I've been in West Gym for, actually, believe it or not, it was my alma mater, and let's just say there was a fireman's carry, there was a fall, the place went nuts a couple years ago watching that, and that was it was mid-January and I'm sweating like crazy. It is one of the hottest environments just as a fan. For someone who has never been to West Gym, and if you're sitting there, have the opportunity to watch it, what is your best sales pitch to say, you know what, Carver's great, Gallagher-Iba's great, but West Gym is something you have to circle and make sure you at least attend a home dual meet at least once in your life. It's like a bucket list item. Explain why.
I mean, you have invested fans, and it's really the Panther train, and they get loud, rowdy, it's hot in there, and you're on top of the wrestling. It's like you're right there on the mat thing near. And it's such a historic place. And the wrestling's always going to be good. You're not going to see bad wrestling when you come to West Gym. And we're trying to get the best teams to come and visit if they want to. But I mean, you're gonna become a Panther fan just by coming to West Gym. So I say everyone try to make at least one, but try even harder to make more.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times, and the most recent time was the most intense. Now, one thing, I guess the question on a lot of people's mind now is what's next for you? What do you do? Are you getting into coaching, teaching, graduation? What is your now post-college wrestling plans look like?
I'll be student teaching this coming fall in Waterloo. I actually find out my placement locations next Thursday. From there, I'll also be joining PWC and competing and helping coach where I can. And so I plan on going to the World Team Trials in May. That would probably be my first freestyle competition.
Like ever, or in a long time?
No, since my junior year of high school. But I'm just excited to kind of take a different role with the team. Kind of a coaching role, but still being able to compete and helping the guys that helped me out so much. So giving back to them.
When it comes to your student teaching, what's your subject? What do you want to teach?
I want to teach math, middle school math. I think that's where a lot of misconceptions start to come in learners and students. When algebra starts getting introduced, people can get confused and lost, and then it can be a downhill spiral for the rest of their math career, and then they start to hate math. And I want to kind of change that misconception and help people out my biggest thing, honestly, in becoming a teacher is I want to be a role model and impact lives. I want to make a difference in the world, and I think that's the biggest way to make a difference, because that's the future of the world. So if you can impact the youth, then the world in the future will be a better place.
Yeah, and a math teacher can definitely change your perception. I've got two instances. One, I took one class in high school, not such a great experience. The next year, better teacher. Yeah, even a higher level math. Oh, it was a lot more fun. College, same thing. Stats. Oh, it is a stats guy. I'm like, okay, that's great. No, finally found the right professor, aced it. So yeah, the teacher / professor makes all the difference in the world. So, I was told though on this show there would be no math. So, you've kind of broken that. We've got math here on the show because of Drew Foster. We got math and NASCAR. Go figure.
Do with that.
Drew, anything you want to add here as we wrap up this episode? You can talk about the Panther Train, pitches, places to eat in Cedar Falls. I mean, of course, I'm partial to Mulligan's because they got the good pizza and they got the cups that are everywhere around the house. I mean, if somebody's coming to Cedar Falls to check out wrestling, to check out the area, what are your suggestions? And maybe a final sign-off for you for the UNI wrestling program and hashtag Panther Train.
Here in Cedar Falls, I mean, there's a lot of good options. Cruising down Main Street, go down 18th Street, you'll run into there. I mean, there's a lot of good options. I'm not really allowed, I don't think, to stay places. I can't really endorse places I don't think too well. Right now, not till May. But if you cruise down Main Street, there's some good spots. Cruise down 18th Street. There's a couple of places like right next to each other that I enjoy. But I definitely recommend coming to Cedar Falls, coming to the West Gym. And it's an experience not like any other place. And former wrestlers will say the same from different schools. And it's a cool place, and I'm blessed to even be here. So try to make it out if you can. And the Panther Train's coming. Full steam ahead. Watch out for us.
And real quick, where can people follow you on social media if they so desire?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram with at Dre_Nald_Foster. I believe that's what it is. Like my first and middle name.
Underscores, man. They change the world.
They really do. So yeah, if anyone wants to follow me, go for it. I've had a lot of followers in the recent week, so I try to follow people back if I know them. But it's hard to see who they are.
That's where you can find him on Twitter. Drew Foster, congratulations. It was an awesome thing to witness right there in Pittsburgh. National champion, top of the podium, Panther Train rolling, first champ since 2000. Congrats and best of luck in your teaching success and your athletic success as well.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Go Panthers.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Clothing. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. Hey, you know what? Did you like the show? You want to hit that subscribe button? MattTalkOnline.com/listen. Various different ways to subscribe to this show on your favorite podcatcher of choice. And if you're already subscribed and you're already listening, you love the show and you want to support this show and this network, MattTalkOnline.com/join the team. Become a team member today.